G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we are continuing our community chat series with a good friend of the AFL fantasy community. First time on this podcast, Jeppa. We're going to be going through his the juniors and all the rookies and cash cows that he's touting for us to be in our fantasy times and more. Let's go!
Hodges done it from nowhere. Busted the goal from inside the 30. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Petrarca. The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and joined once again, as always, with Luke Rogerson, the Mighty Oxlong coach here. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate, and I'm particularly excited for this one because we always talk about how the available rookies shape up our teams, and we have got an absolutely amazing guest in Jeppa to talk through
and we don't profess, you and I don't profess, we don't know shit when it comes to rookies.
we don't know shit when it comes to anything, mate.
So we are going to be hanging on every word of this great man, Jeppa. Let's bring him
on
in.
The screen. Beautiful. Welcome, Jeppa.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Good to have you on. I've been listening to your stuff, and you and Pete do excellent work over at the Plus Six podcast. But it's always good to have you on the show for the first time. So if anyone's straight off the top here, guys, if you aren't listening to the Plus Six podcast, would definitely go and recommend checking that one out. But how is that? Before we get started into the questions, how's your fantasy preseason going, and how are you shaping up for 2024, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. It's I think I'm set with my structure of my team. Players obviously need some work, but yeah, this is the time of year where we all think we're going to win the car, and we get around every player that's doing well and doing badly, and yeah, enjoying it.
I don't know about you, but I will win the car. So
confidence, mate. Speak it into existence. Now, Jep, we you might have caught some of our previous episodes, and we've been kind of quizzing our guests on their particular fantasy team. But something that transcends your own fantasy team is your knowledge of rookies, mate. So we wanted to pick that brain of yours about some of those rookies, some of those cash cows. Now, let's start in the defender line, mate. Is there any rookies popping their heads up that potentially we could even have the confidence to start on field in that defensive line?
Yeah, so it's pretty thin back there. I think that's obvious to many. And if we're going to classify rooks under 300 grand...
Yeah, we'll call them cash cows, I guess.
Yeah.
Then there's only Dan Curtin and O'Sheen Mullen.
Right.
They're the two that are on top of the tree. Josh Gibcus as well. Then you got a couple of slow burns and key position players in Toby Pink and Zach Reed. So it's pretty thin back there. And as a result, most coaches, including myself, have loaded up in the back line this year. A bit like what we did last year with the forwards, but for different reasons. So, yeah, very thin, got to be careful. The coverage isn't great. Even Dan Curtin playing, a third tall in that back half, it's not conducive to great scoring. So, yeah, coaches should be wary of that and planning accordingly.
Absolutely. So at risk of revealing your secrets, is Curtin currently your D6 or is he
on the bench?
finding a spot on the bench?
He's my D7, mate.
Okay.
So, I mean, we should throw in Marty Hoare there. I'm actually worried that Marty Hoare is not best 22.
Right.
I think they might use him a bit like Michael Hibberd. And again, this is all assumptions, but when the matchup suits, Hoare will come in. I don't think he's locked in every week, but that could change. Pretty keen to get a gauge on him. But yeah, at the moment, Marty Hoare's my D6. Yeah, Curtin and Mullen. So on the bench. So.
Too much glass for him to crawl over old Marty Hoare, which apparently he said that he would to get back to the team.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Sounds like we've had a peek behind the curtain and there's not much.
Oh, bloody terrible.
Straight
off
into
the bat.
Let's go.
But yeah, so I do think that there are a lot of teams out there that will be structuring up with Dan Curtin on the field. And like you, Jeppa, again, without knowing too much. And again, this goes to say that often we'll get like some bolters or someone like that maybe putting their hands up, but this far out, it seems as though the confidence in him scoring enough might be at least exploring the opportunity to have him on your bench there. So is there any bolters or anything like that you're catching wind of that might be a semi-chance, and if they are there, worth a punt, or is it really that thin?
Nah, not for defenders, not really, mate. there's probably a couple in the midfield that could bolt, but I'm just wary of like coaches starting Zach Williams and trying to cover it with Dan Curtin. Like it's really just you're going from 22 to 21 really without starting. So my approach is different to that. I want to in these early bye rounds. I'm looking to bolster the scores as best as I can because things are going to happen, injuries, whatever else. Yeah. So, that's the approach right now.
Yeah, it's not something I'd considered. I think I might have to go back and have a look at that defensive line because mine's looking pretty light on. Now, you mentioned that you were at the Freo intra-club game. A bit of news out of that, but one that we want to know about is Jeremy Sharp. And are you pretty confident that he's going to be there in their calculations round one?
Well, I tweeted out yesterday that I wasn't, and I copped a bit of a pasting from the Freo faithful. Fair enough.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, look, it's just my observation. If I was Longmuir, personally, I'd start O'Driscoll on one wing and then Matt Johnson on another.
Yeah, okay.
A bit of byplay here is Freo have to play Erasmus and Johnson if they want to keep them on their list in the short-term future. So, I think Jono will fit in on a wing and then rotate through inside mid, and Longmuir's quoted as saying that's his position for the year. Erasmus is more inside mid and then resting at half forward. Yep. So we'll see how that plays out. But coming back to Sharp, he could miss out. I don't think he's a lock. He's very much in the mix and
does that make him like a vest option as well, like someone who could be, subbed out?
Correct. He is a runner. But, it depends. Absolutely. I mean, this is the issue, right? With a lot of these rooks, they're all every year they're going to have that vest risk, red vest or green vest. So when that stifles cash gen, that doesn't do anyone any favours. So, look, I'm not convinced on Jeremy Sharp. He's still on my team. But, I don't think it's a lock and a given as some may suggest.
Yeah, because he does seem to be that very popular M8 kind of option for those who are structuring up with the 5 sort of more expensive midfielders and the 3 sort of cash cows there with McKercher and Sanders and Sharp being the 3rd. So is there some other options on the midfield that maybe if people were wanting to still go with that 3 cash cow option on the field that you'd be happy to put on the field, or does that lead you more to trying to go even deeper into midfield and have 2 cash cows there and have someone like a Sharp on the bench and someone else there?
Yeah, my preference would be to just have the 2 rooks on field, and that for most is no secret, McKercher and Sanders. Yep. Again, I don't think Sanders he'll score well, but I don't think he's a knockout player that everyone thinks. Imagine playing next to Bont and Libba and all that. Like,
can't get too used to these Dacos and bloody Sheasel types. So
exactly. So so there's that, and then the second or the group of the rest, if you want to call it that. Clay Hall could pop his head in at round 1. Ed Allen. And these are guys that can score, right? Kay McAuliffe from Richmond has been touted this preseason. Yep. Jai Clark finally should be playing, but Low Tog is likely there. You think about what they did with what's that GWS recruit they had last year that we all started in that forward line.
I'm blanking too. I'm going to find it up. You keep going, but I'm going to.
My apologies, but he had Low Tog last year. So just be wary of that with Jai Clark. Matt Roberts is another one from Sydney.
I like Matt Roberts.
He's tough young fella there. So
he's touted to go half back. Is that something that you've heard and something that you think will happen as well?
Well, it's hard to get anything out of Sydney, isn't it? No, there's not many track watchers out there, so we're just going to have to wait and see in the pre-season games. But look,
Tanner Bruin was the guy we were talking about before. I've just looked that up.
Thank you. Low Tog last year for Tanner Bruin, learning the new game style. I know Chris Scott likes to ease his new players and rooks in, so just be wary with Clark. And then Harry Ralston's the other one from GWS who I really like, and look, showed a little bit last year but didn't get a big run at it. So another pre-season, he'll be looking good. So out of the lot, I would probably start Matt Roberts. But again, all sort of subjective.
Do you think he's an option? Do you think he's an option for like that M8 spot, or do you think he's more of that like bench option only?
Preference is bench option only. Yeah. We want to limit our rooks on field where we can. That's one of the 12 commandments of AFL fantasy.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, so it comes back to the midfield, right? So McKetch and Sanders will go great on field, safety enough, especially with safety in numbers. But yeah, others I would put on bench personally.
Now, mate, let's turn our attention to the Rucks. And the Rucks are an intriguing position all around this year, but somebody that we want to pick your brains about a little bit is not necessarily a rookie per se, but Jordan Sweet as an R3 option. It's been bandied around a little bit. Is it something that you're considering going to?
Yeah, he's been in my team most of the preseason,
Okay.
and that's to cover the bye rounds of Gordon Grundy in the early buys. Pretty hard to ignore their value at the minute. But yeah, reading between the lines, it's not looking good for Sweet because he's got hefty competition. They've structure up so tall already, up forward. So it's either Sweet or Soldo.
Yep.
Now, I don't necessarily think Soldo's a better ruckman than Sweet. I know Soldo's played more AFL games, but that doesn't mean he's a better ruckman.
He's definitely got a better moustache. That's one
thing.
thing.
Well, that's one thing it is. And apparently, according to the traders, moustache equals confidence equals points. So, I don't know.
I'm not biased, but moustache is everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's watched Soldo for a long time, he's solid, but I do see him more as that kind of depth ruckman for the most part.
Yeah, he's a bit of a plotter, isn't he?
He's a bit of a plotter. Like this, I don't know. Maybe that's like the anti-Richmond bias coming out, and you're a bit harsher on your own team and things like that. But without watching too much Sweet in obviously hasn't played that much. I do think he could get there, and we this episode hasn't come out by the time we're recording it, but it will be out when this one airs. Louis came onto our podcast before, and he also said the same thing. He reckons that they're probably going to go one or the other and go with the Soldo or the Sweet. So it will be interesting to see if which one's names that round one side.
Is there a scenario, Jep, where Sweet isn't in your team there? Like, talk me through.
Is it Sweet or are we looking at red dots on the R3? Is there another option?
No, I'll go Toby Conway if Sweet's not name round one. But I'm prepared to back Sweet in if he is name round one, only because
so if they're both
competition
named
internally. Well, no, not necessarily. Even if Soldo's not named, competition internally is great.
If Conway and Sweet are both names there, your preference is Sweet over Conway?
Sweet, yeah. Sweet will score better than Conway. Conway should be playing a good chunk of games this year. He's put on weight, looks stronger, had a good back end to the VFL season last year. So, and he's obviously cheaper, but Sweet. I think last year there was a game where he had 56 hit-outs or something stupid like that. So he, personally, I think he's a better ruckman, outside looking in. But, yeah, like I said, internal competition's great. Like, think of Rory O'Brien and that Strawn other fella that was there to take his spot, and it really elevated O'Brien up to the next level. Hopefully the same goes with Sweet here. And, we'll soon find out in pre-season games.
So outside of Conway and Sweet, the rest not looking that great?
I mean, Harry Barnett from West Coast, but, I wouldn't. He's 200k ruck forward that you could swing in there. There's a few that are just too risky that I wouldn't bother. You want to generate cash, and the R3 spot is pretty important to do that.
Very nice.
All right, let's move to the forward line.
Forward line. Now, Finlay McRae is somebody that we want to talk to you about in particular. Obviously, it came out that his coach, Greg McRae, was singing his praises at the end of season function there. Do you see him as a lock in the Collingwood team this year?
Lock's a pretty strong word. But yes.
We love to throw around strong words.
I do. I think from the footage I've seen, and shout out to Jen, who pretty much showed us everything.
Extraordinaire.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Collingwood are too happy with her doing it, but because it gives away all their secrets. But yeah, there they are. And look, every time I've seen him in match sim sort of training scenarios, he's been great. So I'm just going by my eye, and I like what I see. The other thing too is, and I love a player coming out of contract, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
They are really coming in now to the new contract. This is going to be his biggish contract for his career. So, he's going to put it all on the line. I assume Collingwood want to keep him. So, yeah, I think there's a bit of politics internally with that, with him coming out of contract. And Taylor Adams leaving and being told that, he wasn't part of the future plans, I think hindered around McRae too. So, there's a spot there.
That's a very good point you had there, because I initially, when we were talking about Taylor Adams, a little bit off track here, but we were talking about Taylor Adams like going to a different club. But the more I've seen is the more the fact that Collingwood almost were kind of pushing him out in a way. So
absolutely,
that can only bode well for someone like a Finlay McRae, and a similar kind of situation. Probably not to, we're not expecting it to go this well, but like a Flanders last year was that kind of guy that came out of contract at the end of the year, and it didn't happen until later in the season. But obviously, the club was pushing. This guy's got to get a game so we can see what we have. So I do think that's a good point you bring up there, Jeppa. What about some other forward options? We've got obviously Harley Reid's going to be sitting there, so we're all locking him away. But outside of him and Finlay McRae, what are maybe some options that we can maybe stash away on our bench in the forward line?
Yeah. So look, we've all got Harley Reid, like you said, on our field. So he's tier 1. Tier 2, I've got as expensive, but and likely best 22. But average scoring, and that's Nick Watson and Zane Dersva.
Right.
They're obviously pricey, but I think they're going to play. They're not immune to the best, obviously, especially Watson. But there's safety there, and they're a heartbeat as such playing games. Yep. Tier 3 is borderline best 22 and or a best risk, and I think they're going to feature throughout the year. And one kid who I was so impressed with yesterday watching Freo, is Cooper Simpson. So he could be the Noah Long of last year's draft, a bit of a bargain. I think he had an ankle injury in his rookie year. So Freo have pounced, and honestly, every time he touched the ball, great things happen. So
after your tweet, mate, he went straight into my team. I put him right in there.
Mate, put him in there on the bench. I think it's pretty good to have him there at this point. Others, Sean Manor from Geelong, but again, being wary of Chris Scott and the way he brings new players into his system. Bailey Laurie from Melbourne.
Yes.
Melbourne have lost a couple of midfield depth players there, so he should be putting his hand up. And then Colton Tholstrup as well, who will play a defensive half-forward position. He'll be more of a stopper at half-forward. But, they drafted him for a reason, for a need pretty immediately. And he's a pretty powerful young man from over where I live. And, that's the third tier. Look, the rest are there's Darcy Wilson, Taj Roy Woden, Reece McGuinness might raise his head again. Braden George looked good early, but it's not looking like he's going to start best 22. Might start in the VFL, and because he's missed so much footy. Chris Burgess, Corey Warner, Oliver Dempsey, Kai Lohmann.
Couple of guys that are just sort of there. If they're there, they're heartbeats. If not, don't worry about it.
All you could see for that segment, Jeppa, is just Mitch and I with our heads buried in our laptop. I'll just put the star on everyone you say, mate. You're a fountain of knowledge.
Before we move on I've just got one quick guy that I want to bring to you just to talk about. What about a Caleb Windsor? I've heard a few things about him in the preseason. There's some good raps coming from Melbourne as a forward, 282. Is he someone that is probably just a bit too early for him in the role that he figures to play, or where do you see him sitting?
Well, he's a true and out-and-out winger. So either he takes Lockie Hunter's spot or they find another role for him initially. So, I'm not sure. We've definitely got to watch him, and if he's around the mark, sure.
Good news about those guys in the Melbourne team is they've got that round 0, and if they pop round 0 and they're there round 1, and it's pretty easy selection.
It's tough with some of those rooks, hey? You just wish they weren't playing for the team that they're playing for. Sometimes,
Absolutely. Like, I wish half of them were at West Coast, and then we'd all pick him, right?
You're guilty. Let's go.
All right, let's move away from the rookies, and we'll talk about some of the other topics that we've been going through with some of our guests. And the first one here we want to discuss with you is, obviously, in the AFL fantasy content creating community, the podcast, there's a lot of them out there at the moment, and there's a bit of an echo chamber that sometimes forms, but we're just getting our guests on to see if there's any takes out there or sentiments that you maybe disagree with a little bit or push back. It could be some of our takes, it could be someone else on the podcast somewhere, or just general sentiments that you've found. Is there anything that you maybe just push back a little bit that you've seen this preseason?
Yeah, mine's having a forward primo. I actually do not have one forward primo.
I like this.
It's
I like this. I've definitely experimented with going real cheap, just mid-price crazy.
Yeah, and look, it's not totally unpopular or unconventional, but I think McRae is the likely one with the way the Bulldogs play high possessions.
Yeah.
He is probably the safety there, but I don't think not having McRae is going to burn you. I think he's sort of around his price point, and yeah, sure, there'll be a game where he goes 110 and people would jump on, but yeah, it's over the season. Not starting him, I don't think is going to burn you too much. So yeah. Concentrating that spend in my defence because of the thin rooks is my approach, and I suppose that's my unconventional take.
That's interesting because I think I've listened to you before saying that you like to have a nice balance across the lines and things like that. So that's a little bit different for your playbook.
This is a bit of unusual territory, but like last year we had all those forward primos that we started, and I don't think last year was a balanced side either. So
just the other way.
Yes, absolutely, balance would be preferred, but I think especially in recent weeks, not having a forward primo is not the end of the world this year.
If you're happy to reveal who is sitting at your F1 currently as it stands.
I'm very happy to reveal it's Taylor Adams.
Okay.
Makes me nervous, especially with his early buy round, but given the role, and again, reading between the lines of what his role is going to be, I think they'll rotate Parker and Adams through midfield and half forward, personally. But yeah, let's wait to these preseason games and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely like that. And that's kind of bringing us into our next topic, which is our hot topics, which we know are very, very hot right now. Love how he does.
Hands off. So hard right now. Hands off. Sorry, Jet.
I have to listen back to that one, Jeppa. It's a great sound grab.
We're just bopping away.
Hansel, so hot right now, and so are the forward line. So like we said, your approach to the forward line is to go a bit cheaper this season and going a bit more mid-price heavy. I know these probably change day to day for a lot of us, but are there any of those mid-prices that for you, if you're sort of paying a closer attention to, some guys that you are a little bit more bullish on than others? So you're happy to reveal some names that at least you're watching extra closely in the preseason?
Yeah, no, happy to. The one, it's the forward player mid-price, and it's Connor McDonald. I'm a bit upset with Kingy letting the cat out of the bag the other day with his big rap on him. But again, looking, Hawthorn's list fascinates me and how they're going to structure up this year. So, they brought in Ginnivan, they drafted Nick Watson, they got Sam Butler, who's emerging and can run all day.
I think they're also throwing Hardwick, I think, is being thrown forward as well. So
correct. Yeah. So who comes out of that forward line? It's got to be C-Mac. So
I have to think so.
Yeah, he'll still play. He'll still rest and rotate through half forward, but I think there's more midfield minutes for a guy like him. Now, if you Google Connor McDonald, Rookie Me Central. Shout out to Rookie Me Central, who gives us the great stats. And look at his junior numbers; you'll be blown away.
Because wasn't it a couple of years ago that he was one of the three rookies that we were starting with in the midfield, or am I talking about my ass here?
No, I think that might have been Ward. That was his teammate.
Yeah, sorry.
But I think what Jeppa's referencing is, I think I've heard somewhere that he was second behind Nick Dacos that season in terms of his AFL fantasy average. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So massive numbers. Obviously, when we watch him and playing his role, he's playing his role to the full potential. And that's such a young kid to be so disciplined playing the half forward role. I'm sure he wants to get amongst it and get in the action. But no, he's done really well. And I think it's the next step for him now, third-year breakout, which we love to say. But yeah, got my eye on him very, very closely. And in saying that, the way, and I think there's a topic later about this, but the way Hawthorn structure up entirely.
For sure, out on Big Wash there.
Can I throw a couple more forward line names at you? I'll just throw a few at you and you can talk about who you'd like. Billings, Fife,
bit of like or dislike here
Sardis,
from the pod.
James Jordan. Any thoughts?
So watching Fife yesterday, he looked good. He's strong. Yeah. I'm just wary of his scoring ceiling and his cash generation because, round 1, 2, he'll play, and then round 3 he's going to come along and say Freo flogging. Yep. They're going to put him in the red vest and manage him, right? So, and there'll be the odd game where he's in the green vest too. So, Fife scares me a little bit. Billings, I would consider. I've got to see it.
Yeah.
In pre-season, what the role is in those games. Who else? Sardis, was it? Sardis I love.
Jordan.
Yep, really love Sardis. So, again, this is probably the Rook lover in me that's coming out.
Yeah.
Sardis is a huge ball winner in his junior days. So,
and a recent injury to Ben Hobbs, I think I saw the other day as well. I don't know if that's going to be something that bleeds into the season, but can only help him.
Yeah, can only help. That's right. And that happened yesterday. So, yeah, Sardis, I think he's a wing role. With all this talk of Nick Martin going to half-back, my ears perked up and I said, well, who's going to take his wing spot? And then, obviously, Sardis. So, I think that's a bit earmarked. Not all Essendon lovers and track watchers sort of agree, but, there's Durham as well that can play there and all the rest of it. So, one to watch, but I've got raps with him. Jordan was big on him. Now I'm not so sure because I don't know where he fits.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And the more I've dissected Sydney, the more I'm sort of raising the question.
There's a few mouths to feed there at Sydney, especially when you consider that eventually Callum Mills plays in that team. We've got a guy like Roberts who we're expecting to do things going on across half back. It's just where do you fit?
Goulden's got one of those wings inside. There's a few things to happen over at Sydney. The next hot topic, which we love to talk about this season because it is a brand new thing we have to deal with, and that is those early buys. I guess the general consensus across the community is that trying to reduce your early buy players with the premiums, cash cows, mid-price is a little bit more forgiving. What are your thoughts? Do you have any other sort of things that you're trying to take into account when planning for these early buy rounds?
I'm just avoiding all primos with the early buy. The one I would consider is Sam Walsh because he's such value, but after going to Freo and knowing that Jeremy Sharp would cover Walsh during his buy round, I'm not so sure now. So that's pretty much the black and white approach from me, guys. Obviously, the buy round that in mid-season is imperative that you plan accordingly. Like there was a time where I wanted Rosie, Butters, and Brayshaw, but I can't fit them all in because they all got the round 13 buy. So you just got to be wary of that and see what happens throughout the season, obviously.
Well, let's put you to the test here because you said you're avoiding all premiums on the rounds or playing round zero that have the early buys. I'm going to give you some hypothetical situations when it comes to the opening round and what you will do if this changes your mind. So, starting with the back line, Nick Dacos, he's a hot name, highly owned, although he is starting to fall a little bit. He comes out in opening round and scores a 140 in that round with 70% CBAs. Are you still fading him?
Juicy.
No, I'd probably start him.
Okay, yes, we got it.
Pardon me. So it just comes down to that defender line and sort of spending up there. So I've got the cash in my pre-planned structure, so to speak, to do that. If he did that, obviously. And this, temptation, the opening round is so fascinating, so I love this.
I'd be right there with you, Jeff. I'd be right at the day. Let's go!
You've got scars. We both have scars from last year not starting him.
So
and
I'd have to get on too.
Seeing that score pop, it would be interesting. What I reckon would be interesting, if he does this 140, come round one, if someone like a Finn McGuinness is not named in their round one, I'd still have to think he comes in for that round. Is it round 4 that they play them? But just on the off chance that he's not there, I don't know. I reckon a lot of people might jump on.
Get into it.
Okay, that's hold on. Let's just delve into that. That's a really valid point, right? So Zach Merritt, big fan, trying to look at him at M1 potentially. Finn McGuinness round 1, is he going to be there? Who knows? Now, Hawthorn, how do they structure up? Right? We talked about it before. So if it's me, I'm not playing Finn McGuinness. I'm taking it on. I'm letting
early in the season as well. Coaches have a preference to do that.
Now, there's fantasy bias in my brain that makes me speak like that. But
nah, absolutely not.
It doesn't make sense to me when they got all these young guns to play a tagger.
Yeah.
The only downside is for him personally, he's super fit, does all the team things, sacrifices his game for the betterment of the team. So knowing Sam Mitchell and remembering Mitchell was a catalyst as an assistant coach for West Coast Premiership, and I've not heard a bad word about him when he was here and all the rest of it. And we played a tagger in Mark Hutchings. So it might be part of his future plans.
Yeah, definitely just another wrinkle in that Hawthorn thing to watch for the preseason. So,
now,
who we got next?
The second one on the opening round line roulette is Kitty Coleman. He's someone that neither Mitch nor myself have been really big on, but let's say he gives you a 105 on 40% kick-ins. Is it something that you'd entertain?
No deal.
No deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had Coleman in one of my very competitive draft leagues last year, and he's a slow burn. And watching him, he's actually not super fit. The AFL these days really require the super fit athlete. So,
correct.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid Coleman.
Yeah, he seems to lack a little bit of that thirst, whether it's a fitness thing or whatever it is. But when we've got thirsty operators like
that's true as well. What if he scored 105 in the first half? Would that change your mind?
I'd still go no deal.
Because then he's obviously got 0 in the next half.
That's what's called an anomaly.
Yeah.
Well, because of his early buy round, I'd probably still look at it after his buy round.
Yes.
I wouldn't take him on before.
Yeah. I agree.
Good call. Who's next?
Let's talk about another defender with the early buy round in round 2, Zachy Williams. I've been lowering this one down every time we record because everyone still is keen. So he comes out and he scores a 70 in that opening round. Is this still someone you're looking at if this was to happen?
0% kick-ins.
No kick-ins, yes.
Yeah, I have not had Williams this whole preseason up until last night when Chappie was injured.
Okay.
Again, I put Williams in the Coleman sort of mould where he's not a naturally fit fella, and the game's pretty demanding. Coming off a major injury, I think they're going to manage him, time on ground, vests, all the rest of it. So I'd fade him still.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
That's going against the grain. That's what
I like
hear.
that because I think the consensus is just having him in there, and I've been to and fro with myself as well. Like
You
if there's
just
other
said that
options.
because Jeppa said it, mate.
Well, Jeppa's a very smart man, so I'm going to obviously listen to what he says. But it is interesting that he just seems to be, the consensus. Doesn't matter if he's got the early buy, let's just lock him in. But if he scores a 70, it's above his price, but it's not going to be... It's not going to shoot up super quick, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, you're not going to lose too much. You can bring him in round 3 if all goes to plan, right?
This next one's big. You got this one, Mitch?
Yeah, so Tommy Green, who a lot of people are getting very excited about, and some people have earmarked him to be the top averaging midfielder this season. He comes out in round 0 and he knocks it out of the park and he scores a 150. He just goes nuts. He's pure inside mid, 85% as we all expect. That 150, is this enough to get him on your side?
Absolutely, because they play West Coast and North in rounds 1 and 2.
Juicy.
So you pretty much can't not do it at that score.
Would you do
I think I'd still be tempted to fade.
Would you flip him to Walsh at his buy in that case if everything else went well?
See, I've had many debate about this because in those round 3 trades, when we think about it, it's too early for a big upgrade.
Yeah, you are still
It's almost like the secondary fix-it trades. So I'm not against it.
Okay.
I'm wary, things happen, injuries, but I'm not against it.
Yeah, maybe it's something you don't plan for, but if you have dodged bullets and you have that luxury to do so, that's definitely a play. And especially if he goes 150, then he comes up against these two teams and his price is going to shoot up even at his,
You've
high
at least
price.
got the safety of his price not dropping. Do you know what I mean? We can't see a world where he doesn't at least just go 100 against North and West Coast. And if he's got that 150 in the bank, you're not going to lose out which is what we try to avoid with some of these primos at the start of the year.
All right.
Okay, we are going to the aforementioned Sammy Walsh, and let's say Sammy Walsh gives you a 125 on 65% CBAs. Would that be tempting enough with that early buy?
Yeah, I think it is. I think his value, and I look at last year, he had a limited preseason back surgery. Backs are so hindering as an injury as a whole, and he came out of it pretty well. And look, in the final series, his performances were very impressive. Not fantasy aside, as a footballer, really good. So I would start him off that.
Was there anything, Jep, that worried you about the fact that when Carlton were playing elite footy in the back half of the year, finals aside, that Walsh's scores weren't really setting the world on fire? Or is it...
No, not really. I think, Cripps, we know what we're going to get from him. Hewitt's very similar to Cripps. They need that, what's the word, like an Andy Brayshaw, that link player, I suppose. That gut runs from the back half to the front half and gets the +6s along the way. So I think he's good.
In any other year, he would be a no-brainer pick.
Any other year, absolutely.
Yeah, what I mean.
Let's go to the Ruck line. I'm going to group these two together because they do actually play each other in that opening round. So in that one game, Max Gawn, he goes a ton, he gets the 100, and Brodie Grundy gets a 75. Are you starting one, both, or neither of them in this situation? What's your thoughts with these ruckmen here?
I'd start Gawn, and I'd probably still start Grundy.
Yep.
But if I was worried and to the eye he didn't convince me, then you could go down to Cherry. So Gawn for sure. I think Gawn is pretty much a lock for me. It's a shame about this early buy round. Admittedly, I have toyed with having Marshall instead of Gawn as a bit of a point in difference, just for one, captain option, and two, because this Gawn and Grundy setup is going to be so popular. So that's still a TBA.
I like it because a lot of people are just locking away Grundy, and I'm still on the fence about it. All right, to the forward line.
To the forward line, and we've got Sammy Flanders up here on the Gold Coast. Gives you a 110 on 50% CBAs. Would you like the roll enough to dive in with a round 3 buy?
No, I won't, and it comes down to structure. Yep. That would mean my whole structure changes, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I don't want to sacrifice from defence given the limited rooks. I'm long-term vision here. If I'm going to start needing to rely on Mullen and Curtin and whoever else for their scores on field, it's not going to bode well.
Yeah, no, very good point.
Jeppa's good at this game. I like it. He's got the conviction, but he doesn't mind taking the bait on a couple of
backing himself in. Taylor Adams is the last guy we'll touch on here. He comes out and has a 95. You said he was at your F1 right now. He has the 50% CBAs, which might be a bit low for some, but still scores that 95. Is that enough for you to keep him there?
100%, yeah. That's well above his starting price. So that's the goal in that forward line with the mid prices. That's a start.
Just ride that price rise.
If you had to put a number on it, what do you expect his CBAs to be? Do you expect him to get back into the 80s or?
No, not that high. Again, I think when we look at the midfielders from Sydney, Robot and Warner, Goulden's going to go through them more, I believe. Parker and whoever else, plus Adams, and tried throw in Jordan. It gets pretty heavy.
It's like a clown
without
car.
Injuries. Yeah, exactly. So I think the 50% CBAs is about right. The way I'm reading it is they'll swap Parker and Adams between half forward and mid, but that's me, and I'm not horse long though.
Very good. I like your conviction there with a lot of those opening round roulette picks. So let's move on to now just quickly. You don't have to go into too much explanation here, but who's someone or a couple of players, maybe outside of those obvious rookie picks in Reed and McKercher and the like, who's someone that hasn't left your side all preseason that you are pretty confident will be there round 1?
Zach Butters.
Zach Butters
for me. I think
I would echo that.
Not first tag. His price point is under 900 grand just. I think there's a little bit where he can improve on his average of last year. He gets a heap of it. He's now the vice captain of Port Adelaide. They want him being one of their best players, and I think he'll be great.
He's got a pretty good run to start the year as well, which I also like.
And outside of those locks, I wanted to quickly talk about players that you're watching. You mentioned, obviously, before that you're really intrigued about what Hawthorn are going to do. If you had to have a guess right now, who do you think Hawthorn's starting midfield is?
Oh, that's a good question. All right, let's go with, and again, I can't even put Nash in there convincingly, but they've got Newcomb. Yeah, Newcomb's the number one. Let's just park Nash for now. They got Ward. I wouldn't even say Ward's number 2, but thereabouts. Yeah. Warple, Nash. So there's 4. C-Mac. Oh, I am missing someone else, aren't I?
Mackenzie?
You put me on the spot here. Mackenzie, a little bit, but I think they'll still protect him as such. So
I think the fact that it's so intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I got no idea, but I'm really keen to know how they structure up. So,
are there any other teams that you're watching really closely?
Yeah, North Melbourne's midfield mix too.
Yep.
So where they use Simpkin, what they want to do there. Is it going to be Sheasel, Wardlaw, and LDU? Yeah. That's what it looks like, reading between the lines. So, they're the other team. Sydney, obviously, as well. A couple other points I put it down here is Liam Duggar's role between midfield and defence.
Yep.
How that works, because he did play midfield at the back end of last year. and he wasn't that convincing in my opinion. But pretty tough. I still think, knowing Simo, they want the harder bodies around the ball to protect the kids. So I still think he's going to play healthy midfield minutes, but I just want to, again, see it a bit better. The last role or structure I want to look at is now, especially with Chappie injured, is how Freo's back half movement works. No Young, because he's playing pure mid. No Chappie.
Maybe Clark. What did Clark look like yesterday? Was he good?
Jordan Clark got a heap of it in the second half.
Okay.
So that third quarter, every time I looked up, he had the ball in his hand. So, but Luke Ryan as well. So Luke Ryan's going to rack up, like he did last time. So, so watching that I think is important.
Very good, very good watches there. And I do think that obviously with that Heath Chapman injury, if it is something that is going to prevent him from starting the season, that a lot of people are pretty hot on someone like a Jordan Clark. He might, start to rise a little bit in that selection ownership. Let's get into the finishing out the show here with some rapid fire questions. Now, we haven't sent you these ones ahead of time, Jeppa, because we want your anything that just comes off the top of your head, quick fire, and let us know your thoughts on all these ones. I'll throw it to you, Luke. You throw the first one out there.
Okay, first one. Predict the highest averaging player, 2024.
Nick Dacos.
Oh, I like that one. Biggest improvement from last season, from a player point of view.
Yeah, average. Brady Grundy.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, that's pretty safe. I think Grundy's going to go big. Premier predictions. Who's winning it?
Brisbane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to have the hunger.
Yeah.
We don't. It's ironic because we live in Brisbane and we don't like the Brisbane Lions. But
I think there's a bit of history there with Richmond and Brisbane in a few games.
But they obviously went very close last year, so very good prediction. Would you? Oh, sorry, no, I'm skipping one. Wooden spoon predictions. Is it the Eagles?
Yeah, it's West Coast, unfortunately. I think.
No.
So, sadly, I've snuck into a few trainings, and it's West Coast.
Richmond might be pretty bad this season. You don't know.
My challenge. All right. Your next one.
I like this question. It's one of my favourites. Would you rather win a hat or your team win a premiership?
Team win a premiership. I was there in 2018.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, mate.
Great game to be at.
Yeah, I had to sell a kidney for my ticket, but I was amongst the Collingwood corporates. I believe there was 11 in 400 people in the room, of 11 West Coast supporters and 400 Collingwood.
Wow.
And boy, oh boy, was it a good day. So, I would love to relive a moment like that. Much more important than a car or a hat, in my opinion.
Great call, mate. Great call.
Besides yourself, who wins the Content Creators Cup this year? Who are we backing in? Are we backing in the reigning champ or
first thing that comes to your mind? Even someone you might be looking at if you.
Oh, look, I don't know. I think DC is really good fantasy mind. He looks at everything methodically. He takes a bit of bias out of his selection. So I'll go DC.
Shout out DC, fellow West Coast supporter. Maybe there's a bit of a tandem there. I don't know.
What do we got next? We got toilet paper, over or under?
Over. Yeah, pretty easy.
Okay, that's the consensus answer.
That's what we want.
Unless you're Bales' roommate, there was a whole debacle there. What is your favorites chocolate? Which is the first chocolate you pick out of a favorites box?
Oh, Flake.
Interesting. I don't even know if they have them anymore. Actually,
surely they still have.
Last favorites box I had no Flake, and I was outraged.
Flake is messy but worth it.
Yeah, I think they replaced it with the caramel, which I cannot stand by.
I'm gonna shame this guy. Guess this guy picks out the Morrow first.
Hey, the Morrow, mate.
Jeppa's reaction sums it up.
Shame.
That's disgusting.
It's just a Mars bar.
Most people will happily get rid of those. It's disgusting, man.
I'll take all the Morrows. All right, you're the next one.
Okay, is soup a drink or a meal?
Do you eat it or drink it?
This is one of your... Yeah. It's a drink.
Oh, okay.
What about like a thick pumpkin soup that you dip your bread in?
Does it matter the soup?
If you can't drink it through a straw, then it's not a drink, right? So,
that's true.
Then it's a meal.
Okay. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, if you're calling soup a drink, does that make like custard a drink? And
It depends how hard you want to go on the custard. I'll drink custard.
I don't know.
Okay, this is the big one. Finish it off, Mitch.
Does a straw have 2 holes or 1?
It has 1 hole.
Yes!
Jesus Christ.
Every guest has said 1, and every guest has been correct.
I'm on the 2 wagon, but...
You can't listen to a bloke who eats Moros. That's all I'll say.
That's true.
Apparently that is just a wild out there opinion. But, okay, looks like the consensus is the 1 hole, but... I'm sure one person's going to get
trying,
the
mate. Quit trying.
Thank you very much, Jeppa, for jumping on here, mate. Let us know what you've got going on over the next few weeks as we get to the end of the preseason. What's happening over at the Plus Six podcast, or if there's anything else that you want to plug for the audience out there.
Yeah, we're ramping up now, like all of us content creators. It's big preseason coming up, games in a few weeks. So, yeah, every Wednesday the pod's release. We record Tuesday night. Pete and I. So, yeah, check out the Plus Six podcast, and obviously Twitter or X. You can find me at Jeppa DT.
Jeppa DT, yeah, must follow, I reckon, with all of those Rooks insights and track watchings with both the West Coast teams. Definitely give Jeppa a follow. You can follow us on Twitter as well, and make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up if you are enjoying the content. Community catch-up series, let us know in the comment section below. Hit that big old subscribe button. Let's get to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, 5-star ratings and reviews, all that jazz, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!